Across the ages, there have been names that invoke fear, names that remind us of the dark and the decayed, the rot beneath the surface of life. But perhaps none are as unsettling as Beelzebub, the Lord of the Flies. The very name stirs images of plague, corruption, and death. But who, or what, is this ancient being? Is he merely a figure of superstition? Or is there a deeper, darker truth behind his legend? Prepare yourself, for this journey is not for the faint of heart. How did this once mighty deity, worshipped by ancient peoples, become synonymous with pestilence and decay? How did he transform into one of the most feared demons in Christian demonology, ruling over filth, rot, and the sickening spread of corruption? In the Christian tradition, Beelzebub is considered a prince of hell, and thought originally to be of the order of seraphim. He is often depicted as second only to Lucifer himself. But his story doesn't necessarily begin with the fall of angels. It stretches further back, to the ancient lands of the Near East, where he was worshipped as a god of the Philistines. And yet, as the tides of history shifted, so too did Beelzebub's image. Over time, he became linked with the forces of darkness, flies swarming in his wake, a harbinger of decay and moral corruption. Join us as we delve deep into the lore, uncovering the origins of Beelzebub, his rise to infamy, and the chilling connection between this Lord of the Flies and the plague, decay, and corruption that has marked his legacy throughout history. To truly understand Beelzebub, we must first journey back in time, back to the ancient world, where gods and demons intertwined and belief systems collided. Before he was demonized, Beelzebub was known as Baal-zebub, a deity revered as the god of the Philistine city of Ekron. The name Baal meant Lord in many Semitic languages. In this case, Baal-zebub was thought to mean Lord of the Flies. But why flies? Some scholars believe that this connection to flies was symbolic. Flies are drawn to decay, to rot, to death, and to waste. To the Philistines, Beelzebub was a powerful god, worshipped in their great city of Ekron. It is said that in times of sickness and plague, they sought his protection, believing he had control over both life and death. But over time, something changed. With the rise of monotheism, particularly through the spread of Judaism and Christianity, former gods like Baal-zebub underwent a transformation. What was once divine became demonized. The old gods were seen as corrupt and malevolent, and Baal-zebub was no exception. In fact, his very name was twisted. In some translations, the name changed from Baal-zebub, Lord of the Flies, to Beelzebul, meaning Lord of Dung or Lord of Filth. This shift not only demoted his status, but also associated him with the basest elements of existence: decay, waste, and corruption. As Christianity grew, so did Beelzebub's infamy. By the time of the medieval period, he had become one of the most feared demons, referred to as the Prince of Hell, second only to Lucifer himself. And with this, he became associated not just with filth and decay, but with moral and spiritual corruption. Beelzebub was now seen as the embodiment of everything that rots, both in the body and in the soul. But the story of Beelzebub doesn't end here. His role as a demon, as a corrupter of both flesh and spirit, would only grow stronger in the centuries to come, and his connection to plague, decay, and disease would leave its mark. Throughout history, flies have been seen as carriers of disease and destruction. They feed on filth, laying their eggs in the rotting remains of life, bringing new generations of death from decay. But for Beelzebub, flies are more than just a symbol. They are his very essence. In his wake, they bring plague, pestilence, and the stench of death. In Beelzebub's hands, flies become not just carriers of disease, but symbols of the filth that lies beneath the surface of society. His power over flies mirrors his power over human corruption. Both spread silently, inevitably, until nothing pure remains. His association with rot and filth also spoke to a deeper, more insidious form of corruption. The decay of morality, the breakdown of order, the spread of lies, greed, and lust. Just as flies feed on death, so too does Beelzebub feed on the corruption of humanity. In one of the earliest and most vivid references to Beelzebub, we find the Testament of Solomon, a mystical text from antiquity that describes King Solomon's encounters with demons. In this text, Beelzebub is described as a mighty prince of demons, responsible for great destruction, sickness, and decay. When asked by Solomon about his role, Beelzebub reveals his dominion over the destruction caused by tyrants. He speaks of his power to incite wars, cause cities to fall into ruin, and spread disease among the people. He is a force of chaos, bent on corrupting both rulers and their empires. By causing greed, pride, and corruption to take root in the hearts of men, he accelerates the downfall of entire civilizations. But how did he come to be one of hell's most powerful figures? Stay tuned as we explore Beelzebub's place in the infernal hierarchy and his rise to power as one of hell's most feared princes. In the great and terrible hierarchy of hell, power is everything. And few demons hold as much power as Beelzebub, one of the 7 princes of hell, and said to be second only to Lucifer himself. Known as the Prince of Gluttony in some traditions, and as the Lord of Corruption in others, Beelzebub's influence spreads across every corner of hell. It is said that where Lucifer rules through pride and defiance, Beelzebub's power lies in the degradation of both body and soul, feeding on the filth and decay of all living things. Within demonology, Beelzebub is often considered one of the most powerful figures in the infernal realm. The Lord of Flies, commanding legions of demons and spreading chaos throughout the mortal and infernal worlds alike. In his role as a prince of hell, Beelzebub is said to govern over vast armies of demonic forces. His mission, to corrupt, to destroy, and to ensure that chaos reigns supreme. His influence seeks out the rot at the heart of human civilization, slowly turning order into ruin. He is often seen as Lucifer's trusted lieutenant, carrying out the most destructive and corrupting of missions. Other interpretations go even further, suggesting that Beelzebub was once a rival to Lucifer, vying for the throne of hell. His power and influence vary across different traditions. In Christian demonology, he is often depicted as a malevolent force, capable of inciting war, famine, and plague. He is mentioned in texts like the Infernal Dictionary, which ranks him among the highest of all fallen angels, responsible for leading many souls astray. But in occult traditions, his role takes on more complexity. Beelzebub is invoked as a mighty demon, one who can command respect and obedience from both humans and spirits. His power to control the forces of corruption and rot makes him a formidable adversary, yet also a figure of dark wisdom. In literary works such as John Milton's Paradise Lost, Beelzebub takes on a slightly different role. Here, he is depicted as a strategic mind, and once again as Lucifer's chief lieutenant and closest advisor. Though still a demon of corruption, Beelzebub's influence in these stories extends beyond brute destruction. He is a master of cunning, often guiding Lucifer's hand as they plot their rebellion against heaven. Though his portrayal may shift between traditions, one thing remains constant: Beelzebub's hunger for power his thirst for chaos, and his ability to twist the very fabric of existence. And as one of the rulers of hell, his influence reaches far beyond the mortal realm. As the Lord of Flies, Beelzebub's chaos spreads like an infection, weakening the structures of power from within. It is said that where he passes, once great empires fall to ruin, their rulers succumbing to greed, gluttony, and lust. His whispers carry with them the stench of death, and his armies of demons follow, ready to feast on the remains. Through his dominion over Decay, Beelzebub ensures that no empire, no matter how mighty, can stand forever. Corruption is inevitable. Order is fleeting. And in the end, Beelzebub's flies will always return to claim their prize. It is said that wherever Beelzebub spreads his wings, moral decay follows close behind. His whispers lead the proud to arrogance, the powerful to greed, and the ambitious to tyranny. And just as flies feast on the remains of the dead, Beelzebub feasts on the corruption of human hearts. Across history, he has been blamed not only for the sickness that ravages cities, but for the moral sickness that eats away at society's soul. His presence is felt in the halls of power, where leaders become consumed by pride and a thirst for dominance. From emperors who sought to conquer the world, to political leaders driven by greed, Beelzebub's hand guides those who thirst for unchecked power. And where there is power, there is temptation. And where there is temptation, Beelzebub waits in the shadows, ready to lead even the most righteous astray. He is a master of disguise, allowing moral corruption to fester unnoticed until it spreads like a disease, infecting every corner of society. His role in corrupting human institutions mirrors the rot that spreads through a diseased body. A society infected by corruption cannot stand. And much like a plague, this decay begins in small, unseen places, but eventually brings the entire system to its knees. Beelzebub's presence is felt in the slow disintegration of trust, in the spread of lies, deceit, and manipulation. From the corrupt official pocketing riches at the expense of the poor, to the once pure leader giving in to the temptations of power. This moral corruption, much like a virus, spreads through the heart of civilization. From the fall of Rome to the collapse of great dynasties, history is filled with stories of once great civilizations crumbling under the weight of their own corruption. And in the modern world, these patterns continue, whether in politics, business, or even within our own communities. The seeds of decay are always present. His presence may not be as obvious as a plague sweeping through a city, but his influence is there, in every unjust law passed, every scandal that rocks the foundations of government, and every leader who succumbs to their darker impulses. Corruption spreads, much like the plagues of old, and in its wake, societies crumble and leaders fall. As we continue, we will explore how Beelzebub continues to manifest in the world today, and how his legacy of corruption has woven its way into our collective consciousness. Beelzebub, the ancient lord of the flies, may have his origins in myth, but his influence is said to persist in more sinister forms. Among rumors of secret societies and elite gatherings, his name appears in theories linking him to corruption, greed, and the degradation of society. Could the elite worship of Beelzebub be fueling the inequalities and moral decay we see today? Modern conspiracy theories speak of a hidden world where the powerful gather to worship ancient deities like Beelzebub. These rituals are said to secure their dominance over society, feeding on the wealth of the working and middle classes, while ensuring their own power grows unchecked. In this hidden world, Beelzebub is seen as a patron of greed and gluttony, his worship a promise of power, wealth, and the ability to dominate those beneath them. But the cost of this devotion is the slow, insidious rot of society itself. As the rich grow richer, the divide between the elite and the rest of society widens. Billionaires amass unimaginable wealth, while working and middle-class families struggle to survive. Is this greed a natural progression of power, or does it echo the influence of something darker? Some believe that Beelzebub's influence manifests not just in individual greed, but in the systemic exploitation of society. The elites, acting as his modern worshippers, perpetuate a cycle of inequality where the powerful feast on the suffering of the many. As wages stagnate, inflation rises, and opportunities diminish, the elites grow richer, the middle and working classes bearing the brunt of their greed. Their actions reflect the corruption Beelzebub sows, taking more while giving less, until society itself begins to collapse under the weight of inequality. Rumors of satanic rituals among the elite often speak of Beelzebub as a source of their power. Whether literal or symbolic, his image represents their willingness to sacrifice morality for domination, greed, and control. These rituals, if true, embody the darkest fears of human society, a pact with corruption itself. Whether real or metaphorical, the idea of Beelzebub's worship among the elite serves as a chilling metaphor of how greed and corruption can erode the very foundations of society. The modern world, ruled by wealth and power, mirrors the myths of ancient demons who feed on humanity's flaws. Beelzebub's influence may seem like ancient superstition, but the parallels between his legend and the state of modern society are undeniable. Greed, corruption, inequality, and decay, all hallmarks of his power, continue to dominate headlines and define the age we live in. Throughout history, Beelzebub's image has transcended mere myth. His symbolic connection to corruption continues to manifest in how we understand the world today. We see his influence not only in ancient texts, but on the news, in the streets, and in our own homes. He reminds us that the line between order and chaos, between purity and corruption, is thin. His story is more than just a tale of a demon. It's a reflection of the very real forces that threaten the balance of our society and of our very soul. Beelzebub's influence is felt not because of his place in demonology, but because his symbolism speaks to something deeper, our collective fear of decay and corruption. In every empire that has fallen, in every institution that has collapsed under the weight of its own lust for power, we can see his hand at work. From ancient belief systems to modern greed, his image has left an indelible mark on our understanding of power, control, and the fragility of life. Beelzebub's story is a cautionary tale, a reminder that even the most powerful can be brought low by the forces of corruption. As we reflect on Beelzebub's enduring legacy, it's important to ask ourselves, what do these myths really tell us about our own world? What can we learn from the ways in which stories like Beelzebub's mirror the real concerns of society, about power, greed, and the fragility of life? Thanks for joining us. Let's continue the conversation. How do you think the story of Beelzebub reflects the challenges we face today? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Whether it's about the role of power in society, the corrupting nature of ambition, or your own interpretation of Beelzebub's influence. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your insights. The forces of decay may be inevitable, but through understanding and discussion, we can shine a light on the shadows that lurk beneath the surface. And until next time, may that light guide you through the shadows of the unknown.